Lloyd Brown, welcome to your show, Why Wells Fell.
Thank you, Steve.
What's going on?
Oh man, a lot of great meetings this last week, and just continuing to gain clarity on what we're doing, and enjoying the nice change of seasons. So, how about you?
Same, a lot of things going on. Clients are they're gearing up. It seems like a lot of clients are getting prepared for a lot of demand, and we're helping them do things different. AI is making things in every industry different. Your industry is people need to be looking at things differently, not doing things the way they used to, right? So today's topic is the insanity of sameness, and it's kind of a theme going on in our world at the moment. The oil and gas industry, they've lived by an unspoken rule, and it's like, do what everyone else has been doing. It's safer that way. But today we're going to talk about why that could be the reason why they're missing out on innovation, why they're missing out on wells that could be performing much better. So why is this important?
Well, it's the old definition of, I don't necessarily want to call it insanity, but it is the definition of insanity, and it's compulsive repetition. And what happens is it's a fear-based process, right? It's this desire to have a failure that highlights you, and the failure was that you didn't do what everybody else was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, standing out in the crowd is risky in an environment where everybody's in a manufacturing process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's our industry has been about what I want to call surface efficiency. We've learned how to drill wells faster, and put multiple wells on the same pad, drilling much longer laterals, and then the effectiveness and efficiency of dynamic changes in our frac fleets and going into simul fracs, all these different things that are giving massive efficiency on the surface, but we're still doing the same thing below the ground. And it might be a red company today and a blue company tomorrow, but they're still providing commodities that are still fitting the old paradigm. And, a conversation last week that we were in, I was like, hey, help me understand why you run this much scale inhibitor, for example. Well, it's what the water treating company recommends. Well, why are they recommending it? Well, it's going to, keep us from having scale. Well, how do they measure that? I don't know. How much is enough? Well, I don't know. It's just what they recommended. Same thing with surfactant. And it's like, oh, well, there's this test that everybody's using. And I'm like, great. It's an evaluation tool. Help me understand how that gets you to the place of making an informed decision that it's benefiting your well and helping you produce more based on what that laboratory test says. He's like, well, it's just what everybody else is using, and that we're going with what they're saying. I'm like, well, is that any different over all these years? Well, no, it's all pretty much the same. Well, why are you doing it? Well, it's because EOG or ConocoPhillips or ExxonMobil or whoever the standard bearer is in that area, it's what they're doing. And so, and we created just this, nobody wants the manufacturing process to be messed up. Henry Ford used to say, you can have a Model T in any color as long as it's black. Well, that's kind of where we are in this stage of development. But what we're now realizing is that mindset has diminished the returns on the resources that we have. And we're working in an area as of right now that we the market believes that we're in a stage of having a diminishing amount of resources we can go get from the geology. We've maximized the best acreage. And when we're looking at it, and we're still looking at the rock, there's phenomenal geology out there. But we believe that for the longest time, that because everybody's doing the same thing the same way, and there's not been it's been product focused, it's created this sameness. And this is that's where I've been really doing my best to understand the mindset. And compulsive repetition, also known as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. The definition of insanity is where we are as an industry when it comes to the reactions happening in the geology. There's a belief system that's been reinforced going on almost 20 years now that what we've learned is providing diminished returns.
Yeah. But yet in all the rest of their business processes, they don't approach accounting that way. They don't approach purchasing. They don't approach.
Well, I would argue that they do. You ever remember the Keras? You'd fly Southwest Airlines, and there would be this Keras form of negotiating. That was getting everybody to negotiate the same way. There's fixed mindsets in everything that we do. It's part of the human nature. It's right. We want to have control,
Mm-hmm.
or the appearance of control. And so I would argue that, accounting, unless there's a tax law change, that's where the creative stuff comes from. But the basics of accounting have been the same for the last 40 years.
Right.
And so, again, control. And when you think about control, you're considered reckless or outside of it when you're doing something different.
So in this conversation that you had, you were telling me about there was someone that was defending the old way.
Well, I don't know that they were necessarily defending the old way, but their perspective was still surface focused, not subsurface focused. And it's on chemical reactions. And that conversation was dynamic and it was really good, but it was trying to apply what we understand at the surface without applying the laws of equilibrium subsurface. And then that's the uniqueness of our patent. We actually discovered a natural law, and you can't patent the natural law, but we use that natural law as the constant for measuring our impact. And so, but again, it's having an open mind and the ability to learn, and that robust conversation I was sharing with you, that's where the great stuff happens.
Yeah.
It can be uncomfortable though.
But so we're having that conversation, or you're having that conversation in that moment, and you're wanting to align with them and help them see there are other expectations that they can have that they didn't know they could consider.
I think that's right. And it's funny when the price of oil, I always say high prices cover all sins, right?
Mm-hmm.
You make money in spite of yourself. And in today's environment, we're in the high 50s right now for oil. Everybody's enjoying really inexpensive gas right now. I filled up the other day for, I don't know, it's $2 and something. I mean, I was like, man, it was this price my senior year of college.
Right.
And so you look at this, and but on the other side, there's a diminishing, there's even a greater importance on effectiveness and efficiency, and it's opened a lot of doors for us. That's when your manufacturing process doesn't give you the returns that you want. How do you fix that? And you got to figure out what the things that are in your control and what aren't. And we're introducing a new way to increase your ability to have control, and that's through knowledge.
And so, as this conversation went on, how did the transition happen? I mean, obviously, when there's pushback, or when there's we've done it this way for a long time, and so it's going to be hard to get me off of this path. How did that transition happen?
Just asking why, understanding why you do what you do. And what we're finding is it's because there's a long established belief that has become a foundation. But when you ask the question on understanding where that foundation was set, how do you know it's the foundation?
It just assumed.
Well, it's because what you've been taught, but if what you've been taught's not the truth, or that usually things that we have as a foundation are based on some assumption, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if the assumption's not based on something that's repeatable and predictable, then the assumption has a lot of opportunity for flaws. It's kind of like, one thing we're practicing in our company right now, we have multiple meetings every week with all of our operating teams. And I had a guy, I'm like, I share our P&L with our team. And we share what we're looking forward to. And everybody's like, you can't share that stuff. That's just yours. And I'm like, well, if I don't share it, their imagination is going to make up an alternate truth.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point in time, when you start getting something that you believe is reinforced by certain results, now what your assumption becomes your truth instead of the truth. And that's where we are. And, as we go in to our next season, we're going to explore that together, Steve. We're going to start talking about instead of the negative components of why wells fail and what we've done historically, we're going to move into why they succeed by learning from why they fail. And that's ultimately why we have a company named Refined. It's taking all of these learnings and not just being comfortable that we're as good as we can get. And that, again, comfort is the enemy of greatness. Fear of failure is the enemy of greatness. Fear of standing out or being different keeps you from greatness because it suppresses the God-given natural gifts that we all have. And so that's what I'm learning is when we go down that path and we start understanding that foundational belief, is it something that's backed up by sound science? And many times these laboratory tests were created not based on sound science, but to show the efficacy of a product.
I loved your quote there. It said, your assumptions become your truth, but not necessarily the truth. That was excellent. Craig Williams says price of gas is $3.25 in Four Corners.
Well, that's because it's New Mexicoized. He lives in the land of manana. No, I'm not talking bad on our brothers from New Mexico, but I grew up there, so I can actually still sing the New Mexico State song from my youth, but they pay a lot more tax than we do here in Texas.
Mm-hmm. So in the In the boardroom, the predictable process or refined completions, it's making more and more sense with the folks that you guys are connecting with. And
It is. And the fact that we have the ability to reduce the production of greenhouse gases dramatically by up to 90% on CO2 and H2S, that moves the needle in multiple ways. And so, yeah, we're seeing traction's a really good word, but it's I also want to say that people are listening and in a place to hear. Again, that's where the price of our commodity it matters, because there's a lot of things that aren't in our control.
Well, that's interesting. So the price at the moment and things that are going on are helping folks be more open to wanting to figure out how to optimize this hydrocarbon that's coming out of this hole, because it's not as profitable as it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's fixed costs, right? And the margins that we make on it are whatever's left after all the fixed costs are paid. And there's variable costs, and those are the things that we need to focus on. There's also variable revenue, so you've got the balance. And if we're not maximizing the revenue and focusing on, you get a twofer, right? If you increase production from one asset and you lower its operating expense, you lower the operating expense $1 and you increase the revenue $1, you now have $2. Well, that's where our focus is to help give that that compounding increase that will last the life of the well.
I think, I'm paying attention to the energy, electric, we have all these AI data centers going up, and I believe there's a similar conversation going on around this demand for electricity is increasing, but the supply doesn't exist. And so there's this, there's more the search for dormant energy or energy that's being wasted in places. And so this is a similar conversation. We're wasting a lot of resources that could be optimized.
Yeah, it's a very strong parallel example, but you have to have a base load, right? You have to have a base foundation in electricity. And when everybody's talking about if the grid goes down in Texas, it could be down for months, and that is a true thing. I've got a really great friend that's an electrical engineer, and he talks about base load. And what our country has shed is coal, the base load that all these coal plants were providing, and they're gone. And so how do we replace that? You have natural gas fired generators, you have nuclear as an option. Wind is not a base load generator. Solar is not a base load because the wind stops blowing and the sun stops shining. Well, the same thing when we take that example, we've got to make sure that we're getting the base out of that foundation rock that we have. I remember in the late 90s, Boone Pickens, we're at peak oil. And now we're the largest energy producer in the world. And we're getting real close to peak production right now, because we're seeing the U.S. is going to start seeing a decline in the amount of oil that we produce, because it's not economical for a lot of folks. And we're going to now come back and experience those swings. And we don't know when. And that's from so many factors. And again, that's where we believe we need to help our clients maximize the amount of production they get from each individual resource and not waste it.
And that's a data-driven process first mindset that can be applied, which is a big leverage on an existing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Lloyd, anything else you want to cover before we
I think we ought to just let everybody know, hey, the next 2 weeks, we're going to start a new season. I believe it's on November 10th, but the next 2 weeks, we're going to give everybody a real, a lot of juicy bits of information to be looking forward to the conversations as we go into our season 2. And Steve, I'd just like to say how much I appreciate your inspiration and your being a great team member and encouraging me to do this podcast. Because I'll be quite frank with you, I was really uncomfortable at the beginning. But these conversations and the offshoot conversations that I've had have really blessed me and given me the ability to have these kind of conversations multiple ways. And it's just been affirming, and that's I'm grateful for you and your team to help us do this.
Well, you're welcome, and I appreciate that compliment. You know, the thought leaders that we really admire and follow, we read their books, and we do this stuff. They've done the work that you're doing now. They got their thoughts organized. They started to share their thoughts. They it hit the market, so to speak. They got some pushback. They refined it, and that's where you are right now, and it's paying off. And so I'm excited for you, and I'm looking forward to season 2. Craig says, thanks. You guys be well and a good cheer, and he's going to follow us, one of our top listeners.
We appreciate it, Craig. Have a good one.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
That's another great episode of the Refined Complete. Why Wells Fail. Be sure to visit refinedcompletion.com. If you want to reach out to Lloyd, you can connect with him there or on social media. On LinkedIn, he's hanging out. And then we'll see you guys here in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, guys.
And that's a wrap.